There we go. And we did start the recording, just on the keys.
We'll give everybody just a minute or two. Yes. Very quiet tonight.
Sometimes we can be pretty chatty.
Apparently this is not one of those nights. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and get started. Let's call the meeting to order. Thank you everyone for being here. We're gonna open the meeting at 6 o'clock on October 4th, 2022. If we could do a roll call, please.
Lisa Manifold.
Here.
Michael Davenport.
Here.
Rachel Turry.
Here.
Patty Tyler.
Here.
Shannon Glazer.
Okay, I'd like to ask if that you could get an approval of the minutes for September 20th, 2022.
I move to approve the minutes from September 20th, 2022.
Thanks, Patty. Do I have a second? Second. Thank you.
There was something I wanted to mention, and maybe this got fixed between the second one that got sent out under new business. I think in the previous one, there was a word that was unclear, but it looks like that's word's no longer there.
In which section?
In new business, but it looks like that word that was unclear is not there anymore. So I don't have any objection.
Like it was blurry.
No, just it was like an incomplete word, like there were some letters missing, but that's not there anymore.
Any further objections? Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor of approval of the minutes, please raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, before we get started, is there anyone that has a conflict of interest, or was there any ex parte communication that needs to be made known before we get going?
On the hearing for tonight, Jared had contacted me, but I think that was before the application was submitted, because I was the staff person when this project was originally heard, so I just wanted to disclose that. And I believe it was before the application was submitted. That is true. He was seeking some information since I was a staff person on the application.
And do you feel that impede your ability in any way to hear this hearing fairly tonight?
I don't think it does.
Okay. We're gonna take you at your word, Mike.
Maybe you might want to ask the applicant.
I think we're good.
Okay.
Thanks. So before we get into new business, are there any public comments?
Don't think so. Nobody online, right?
Correct. And just while Wonder is double checking the form, I did want to introduce one of Carmen Beard's colleagues, the city attorney, Nicholas Klein. So he is with us this evening in case we do have any questions. So.
Hi, everyone. Carmen was double booked tonight, so she sent me in her stead. Look forward to meeting everyone in person sometime soon.
Chair, there are no comments.
And no one
No one
online?
signed up for comments.
Okay, so moving on from public comment, let's go into our new business and open the public hearing for the review of a request for an amended certificate of appropriateness for a siting substitution at 1601 Colorado Boulevard. If we could start with the staff report, please.
All right, absolutely. Thank you. Before you this evening is that request for review of amended COA for siting substitution at 1601 Colorado Boulevard. So we've looked at this property a number of times. In 2021, in May and June of 2021. This item came before the HPRC and was approved for a COA for the attached plans. So since then, we've had a couple different discussions in regards to siding on different parts of the building. Tonight, we're really just going to focus on the principal structure. We're not really going to look at the addition because that has already been talked about and decided back in last fall, actually, fall 2021. So back in May and June, it was when the siding was originally discussed, it was discussed that there was a log veneer siding that had been placed, or a false log siding that had been placed on the original structure over the original tongue and groove flat but jointed siding that was original and that you see in this image, the historic image that has been utilized in other meetings. So HPRC had their approved COA allowed for the log siding to be removed and for the original siding to be repaired in place. So since that time, and I'll let the applicant speak to when time comes to the status of the siding. But at some point in time, the plan to refurbish that old tongue and groove joint siding changed, and staff and HPRC was not notified of that change, and that is something that prompts this amendment. And instead of that siding being refurbished, restored, it was some of it's been removed, some of it's been covered with a new siding, a lap siding. So staff kind of realized or recognized this, did speak with the applicant about it at a point in time, thought that it was going to be covered rather than removed. Either way, we had mentioned that the COA needed to be amended. And then once we saw that the old siding, majority of it had been removed, placed a stop work order on the exterior work of the building. With that, I'll go through some of the images and then the zoning ordinance and guidelines that we have from various documents. So in the report, there's an image of course, the historic site, but then also of what's being installed. It is a lap siding, which is true to what was approved. However, it's not butt jointed, and it is also textured there rather than something, rather than restoring what was underneath, which was the original intent. It's, as you can see also in a later image, a lot of the siding was removed, but I did capture an image of what was historic that had been exposed. And then kind of the current state of much of the wall, which has the original siding removed from it. So that being said, I took a look at the zoning ordinance, and the zoning ordinance, refers to the guidelines, but it also pulls out criteria for review and approval. And that talks about texture and material being similar, architectural style being similar, and it also references the Secretary of Interior's guidelines. So to continue, because we have kind of three sets of documents, correct? We have the zoning ordinance, then we move into the design guidelines. The design guidelines for wood siding, and I've highlighted a couple of portions, indicate that portion of the wood siding, if portion of the wood siding must be replaced, be sure to match the style of the lap dimensions of the original. So the dimensions are pretty close, but then we keep moving down in the report, and avoid removal of damaged wood that can be repaired. So That's one thing that's kind of unknown to staff, is what the status was of the siding. And then further down, if original materials are presently covered, consider exposing them, which is what, the original plan was, to expose that siding and restore it. For example, and then it goes into examples. Once the non-historic siding is removed, such as the log, repair the original underlying material. So that's the guidance that we have from the design guidelines. Then I also did include a section of the Secretary of Interior standards that really focuses, similar to the zoning ordinance, on matching the old, new features shall match old in design, color, texture, and other visual qualities where possible. So really they focus on that texture again. It kind of drives home that same point. Then we also have in the zoning ordinance criteria for approval. So in reviewing that criteria for approval, I did place an opinion, is staff's opinion, that the removal of the original material has implications on item number two, which is protect the unique scenic and historic atmosphere and character of the city and protect the architectural, cultural, and aesthetic heritage of the city. What was being proposed more closely complies with item number 5 regarding economic hardship, because it is our understanding that restoring the original would be expensive. However, that was what was proposed, and it is the purview of the Historic Preservation Review Commission to ultimately allow for the COA and make that decision. But that staff recommendation is that the siding that's being applied does have the dimension similarity. It does have the coining on the end. It does not, however, it is not, however, what was originally approved, which was refurbishment. So we do want to go through this process and get an updated COA. Staff also feels that there's a difference between the two in it not being a butt joint, but being a lap, and the texture. So those are the two items that that staff really wants to kind of hone in on and bring to your attention this evening. And staff recommends that, at least we look towards a smoother finish to better match. We also brought up the idea of further consideration for how it abuts to each piece, whether it overlaps or whether it's a butt joint. And that's what we've outlined in the staff report.
Thank you, I appreciate that. There's a lot of work with this. Before we go on, are there any questions from the commission for the staff?
I've got two related questions. It looks like there's two issues being brought to us. The first one is, does it look like the existing siding that was covered by the log siding, does it appear that it is deteriorated? From the one photo of the east side, it looks like it's in a deteriorated condition, but did you get a sense of that was representative of what it looked like? In other words, it seemed that in the locations you could see, it did appear to be as deteriorated as it appears to be in that picture.
There was definitely some deterioration. I do think that it would have been a challenge to refinish it, but I'm also not 100% an expert as to what it would take to do that. There was definitely some deterioration on it. Absolutely.
Okay, and then the second question is, what's been proposed is a lap siding with a smooth with a textured finish in place of the original tongue and groove siding with a smooth finish. Is that a request as a hardship, or because I think in your report you're basically saying that's not consistent with what was there historically? So is this second part, is this a hardship request?
I guess in regards to,
For using that material instead of a tongue and groove smooth finish siding?
I guess in that regard, I'd prefer that the applicants is better able to indicate whether that is whether they feel that is a true hardship. I do think that finding that material is much more challenging. It would probably have to be custom made rather than a product that you find through the open market. But yeah.
Anybody else? Shannon?
I do. Can you explain the difference between how they're abutting each other? I don't quite get that.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Tongue and groove, I understand.
okay, great. So the LP Smart Side
Mhm.
brochure that was provided. Here we go. This image here shows the overlapping. So where it's, I don't know if you've got that
Yes.
one in. Okay,
There it is.
so you can see each piece, kind of gets pinned at the top, and then it comes down and overlaps the next piece, and then
Okay.
gets pinned over it.
From the picture, it doesn't really look like they're overlapping unless you go up and see it in person. It's kind of like, they go over like this.
Teeny bit it does. Okay.
If you look in the picture where it's against the window, that's where it becomes noticeable. On the, not
True,
the corner,
yeah,
but the
that-
window side, you can see it's sort of veering out as it comes down.
And the other one is, as you mentioned, kind of the tongue and groove where each piece of siding is more or less flush. There is a small indentation where they meet, and that's, I think, more of a decorative kind of flare, or maybe that was for wicking, but yeah, it's a tongue and groove system that's flush against the wall instead of overlapping.
Okay, thank you.
Well,
Thanks, Jared. Anybody else? Okay, with that, I would like to turn this over to John Hearn, our applicant. If you'll come up and state your name, please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, can I get AJ's 1 minute? as well?
Both, please, so if you will both stand and then, Jonah, first, name and address for the record.
Okay, Jonah Hearn, 12559 West 77 Clays, Arvada, Colorado.
AJ Reese, 5856 South Louisville Boulevard, Littleton, Colorado.
What's the street name again? I'm sorry.
South Louisville Boulevard.
All right, both raise your right hands if you would. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Great.
So first off, I just wanted to say thanks for everybody for kind of, I guess, getting this meeting pulled off here to address this issue as quickly as possible. So I just need to share a document here and hopefully this works. And then, Jared, did you get an email with this in case I didn't get it to work?
did you just send it to me?
Yeah, it would have been sent in reply to Wonder's last, It only lets me share it if it's PDF and I have it as a Word document. At least on my phone. I'll go ahead and start reading because really it'll be the photos that's important. So essentially, just to address some of the questions, because there are several new people on relative to when we went through this COA process originally. So in the original application for COA, we stated the desire to restore the original siding by removing the log siding that was applied over the original house. That was approved in June 2021. Over the course of that summer, we removed the log siding off the original siding. And in December of 2021, we contracted with JDR Preservations to complete the renovation according to approved construction drawings that we had with our architects that were submitted with the application or the building permitting process. So that was also after the COA process was completed as well. During preparation of the job site, the contractor determined the siding could not be restored as is. The only available lap siding that could fit with the period while providing the high level of protection of the original building was smart siding from LP Corp. Unfortunately, only the cedar finish was available at the time of order and is still the only finish that is available. I did send a link to that site that was part of the staff report. That's where we got that document from. Unfortunately, yes, while that's an application they say they have, it's not available in inventory. It's not something they're making right now. The original siding was tongue and groove style of lap siding, which requires a custom setup with the mill. The cost to achieve that was determined by the contractor to be excessive, as in hundreds of thousands of dollars. We did not pursue that avenue any further. The coining on the corners is custom machined from the same material as the new siding. So we're trying to keep like materials matched up. That's why the texture carries over to the coining. The framing around the windows is being custom machined to match the photos of the original house. And the example on the cottage across the street, if part of the whole COA application, everything along those lines was the cottage that's behind the Evergreen Bank building. That was an original building on the site, which we felt represented a lot of the historic nature of the buildings of that time period. And what you see on that building is the framing around the windows that we are working on replicating, and also a lap siding, smooth finish, yes, but still a lap siding. That is what's up on there right now. Let me see, bring it around the windows to match the cottage. That is being done with reclaimed wood out of the interior of the building. Panels on the roof line and the exterior are also being custom machined to match original profiles, which AJ brought some examples here. So while the lap siding is an adjustment in profile from the original, the objective was to maintain the look of other buildings in the district, the Victorian period, while also recreating the details of the original building as we restore the property, restore this historical hotel in downtown Idaho Springs. And then if those photos, unfortunately, they're showing up back there. Are we able to zoom in a little bit? So these are some additional photos of deterioration. What you'll see there is on what the east side exposed there. You'll also see what is up on the south side second floor, which is exposed siding of the original siding still. And you can see kind of where the tongue and groove profile is, and there's a chamfered edge that goes into each of those. That is very custom and is not something that you just find off the shelf. It is to properly match that would take tooling a mill at this point. And then those are just more pictures of a lot of the water damage, a lot of the other issues of the siding, cracks, other things. When they put the log siding, so I guess to address the initial application, at the time we had removed about 4 sections of log siding on the Colorado side of the building, looked at that, felt reasonably confident. Now, I'm going to have to fall a little bit on my sword in the fact that I am not an expert on all these things. AJ is a contractor that knows how these things are done. So a lot of the things that were in that application was done by me, and not necessarily in consulting a contractor at the time, because we were able to finally get him on board at December at that time frame. So whereas I can very much apologize for not doing the follow-up that needed to happen, but what I can tell you is every step we've taken at this point is an effort to preserve the nature of the building and restore it back to as close to the original as we possibly can, with materials that are available in what I'll call the COVID supply chain issues that we're in right now. Are there any questions for myself or AJ, if there's any technical questions?
Anyone?
What is this material?
It's a wood like product. It's LP Smart Side,
It's
which
like
is,
composite or something?
it is not composite. No, it's wood. Do you know what OSB is or
Mhm.
carbon? So if you flip it over, it looks like that, but it's not. It is a wood product made with resins and polymers and things to that effect, which binds it together. It gives it a 50-year warranty, no rot, no weathering. You can hit that finish with a hammer and minimal, if no scarring. So it's are you familiar with James Hardy board? So Hardy board is a cementitious. They normally, when I say they, the industry says Hardy's the best. My opinion is it is not. It's difficult to work with. You got to breathe all that dust when you're cutting it. It's fragile. This is wood. This, you use it the same way as you would cut a 2x4. So it's a better product in my opinion.
I actually looked it up and their explanation was an exterior siding product that looks like natural wood, is durable and requires less maintenance. So I was trying to figure out what it was too.
And how tall are the pieces? Are they 6-inch or
Is it
4-inch or?
What we've done is we've replicated the originals, and the originals have a 7-inch exposure, so
So it's like an 8-inch?
that's correct.
Okay. And about how many square feet of, or what's the quantity of that siding for the project? Just roughly.
I don't have that, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was probably you had 2 or 3 pallets of that material,
Yeah, there's 3 pallets of that.
3 pallets of that material, so.
So maybe I might stab at 60 square, which is 60,000 feet. 6,000 feet.
Okay. And do you remember about what the price, the cost was for the material? Just roughly.
I don't.
It was purchased back in January of this year, but not off the top of my head.
Okay, so that was the time in which you were looking at the supply chain problem of the tongue and groove not being available at that time.
Yes, and obviously our intent was to have the hotel open this summer. We've had a couple obstacles that kept us from that, but most of all, the purchasing materials and supplies and stuff like that happened January, February, March time.
Okay, and when did you start putting the siding on, this product on?
That would have been August. Okay. Or maybe, you did the back wall where the electrical panel was, but that was just like a quick set so Josh could do his thing.
That was in June, I think.
June, okay.
Okay, and then to get a tongue and groove siding custom made, you made a very general term. Was it like 2 times as expensive,
So
10
the
times as
product-
expensive?
So the product that was on the building,
Mhm,
first of all, is not available at all.
right.
You would have to contract a mill,
Mhm.
you would have to retool the mill, and then you would have to buy the lumber and do. So retooling the mill at the present moment, if you can find a mill to actually do that work, you're looking at $60,000. Just
Okay, that's-
before you run a single board circuit.
Okay, that's what I was trying to find out, is what was that amount?
Substantial.
Because lumber at the time especially was definitely exceeding $100,000. You add on another 60,000 plus time, labor, things like that. That's where I kind of threw out the hundreds of thousands as a general estimate.
Yeah, I know there was around the beginning of 21, plywood was 8 times the cost of what it was before the virus.
We had a little dip in November, but it jumped right back up in January, right when we were trying to get everything.
When did you guys discover that refurbishing the existing timber group was not going to work?
I think that was part of his analysis, would have been December, January timeframe.
Of 2021, January 2022?
Yes, sir.
I've been here since when you first bought this,
Yes.
and you first came to us when we were just initially talking before you ever came for a COA. We've been pretty clear about, we're willing to work hand in glove with you. So my question is, if you knew in January that this wasn't gonna work, how come you didn't come back to us and say, this isn't gonna work, I need to amend the COA? Because that's part of the problem that I see here. You're in a pickle with us, we've given you a stop work order, it is October,
Mhm.
snow is already falling.
Mhm.
You knew 9 months ago that this wasn't gonna work.
Mhm.
And I feel like while there have been bumps, the city has been pretty good about how can we help you work with this? Because this is a costly project.
Yeah.
But for the most part, we're all pretty excited to not have a horrible looking building. We want a really beautiful building. And the color is beautiful and I think it's gonna look wonderful. But I am disappointed that we're sitting here like this because that's not working with us. When you buy a historic building in a national register district, that's part of the obligation. And so now we are left with making a decision that from staff report, I don't know if that's gonna make anybody happy, truly.
Mhm.
Because you knew about this 9 months ago and you didn't come talk to us. And I wish you had, because we don't wanna put, an extra $200,000 on. We just don't.
Mhm.
And I don't think any of us would, because that's ridiculous. So I'm just curious why you didn't come back and say to us, hey, this is not gonna work. It had to take a stop order for this to come to us.
And this is where, like I said, I apologize in the fact that obviously this is our first project for myself, and I'm not gonna use ignorance or, me not doing everything that I'm supposed to be doing as an excuse. I'm just saying, honestly, without intent to, basically mislead or push, disrespect the process in any way. Our focus was really on getting the process, getting a lot of this stuff done. When we were going through the evaluation of everything that was happening, we were focused on, what do we got to do to get open? And at that point, there were some assumptions that were in my head that we did not communicate with each other properly. And essentially what happened when the work was being done on the east side raised these issues up between AJ and I that we then had a conversation about. Obviously, Jared found it, sent the email. And so we've, in the interim, in the last week or so here, we've gotten on the same page on exactly what is needed to get this restored properly. And if I would have known it would have been to that extent, I probably would have triggered in my brain, hey, I need to go back and have a conversation with you guys. I thought we were simply putting something over the top, but it's really an act of replacing versus restoring or recovering. So that's where I would say my mistake was in not coming back to you guys earlier, because unfortunately what was in my head of what was happening was not lining up with reality. That's since been corrected. And I do appreciate Jared bringing that issue to the forefront and then providing guidance on what I should have done, 9 months ago. So I want to be clear that yes, working with the city has been very, very good. And that is important to me, in making sure that we make this a good building to represent Idaho Springs and the downtown district is important to me. And that's why we are going through the efforts we're going. And essentially all I can do is ask for some level of forgiveness in this aspect, because it was not an intent to disrespect the process or leave you guys out of the decision-making process at that point. I can only say I made a mistake.
Thank you. I appreciate that. What other questions do we have, guys?
I have a question, but it might be, I think either the applicant or staff could answer. It might be better for staff if we want to. The proposed or the suggested motion you wrote was essentially approval with conditions. And when this project was originally approved, there was sort of a situation of, if the applicant doesn't like the approved motion, they can appeal a denial, but they can't appeal approval with conditions. Has that situation changed?
Yeah, so in between when you wrote the report and worked on the report in May and June of last year to when you joined the HPRC, so there was the difference is that if it's a straight denial of the COA, that it can be appealed to City Council. If it is a approval with a condition, the condition can be reviewed by the variance board. And that was the process.
That was my question. Okay, thanks.
Then there's one additional item I did want to address when it comes to the surface finish of the material, because it is an engineered wood with a lot of coatings and protectants on it to make it that 50-year warranty. When it comes to taking the material we have now and cleaning off the texture that's on it, would essentially take away the warranty and damage the material, even if we painted it. I don't think that's recommended by the manufacturer. I don't think AJ wants to take on that liability as a contractor guaranteeing his work that's being done as well.
So I don't have a question, but I kind of like to reiterate on Lisa. I commend you for taking on this project because it's huge, and you know, you had to know there were going to be some weird things that were going to happen just because of the project scope. But I am a little disappointed that you didn't come back to us, because you worked so hard to make sure you were doing everything right. And then when this giant thing comes up, you didn't come back and ask us so we could have helped you earlier. So I can understand that, you know, you think one thing, your contractor thinks another thing, and conversations don't happen. But you know, we want this place open as bad as you do, because it's going to be awesome. Just a little disappointed that you didn't work with us a little bit closer and better. So, but thanks for being honest with us and coming here and trying to fix it now.
Any other questions?
Is there any kind of paint that could be added, not to, you know, sort of buff away the texture, but to add something to make it a little smoother?
That I do not know. I know that the product is made in a facility, and then it's, you know, it's a assembly line, right? You know, you make an assembly, and after it's made and cut to length, it goes into paint and then kiln, and that's their process. So it's all done right there.
So that is the finished paint on it now?
Yeah, it's
Yes, sir.
Yeah, there's only a few colors that were available at the time. This one matched closely to the color we were hoping for, with kind of the lighter color versus the darker color on the coining. So it's not exactly, but it's very, very close to what our intent was.
They guarantee like the color and not having to repaint that 50 years.
But that guarantee is 30 years. It's got a 30-year warranty on it, and I think I need to refresh my memory, but you know, it's broken down into like 5, 10, 20, and 30 is how that warranty works out.
Did you have something? Andy?
Nope.
I didn't know if that was a, I'd like to speak or just clearing my throat. Anybody else? Any other questions? Is there anyone other than our applicants that would like to speak in favor of this? Anybody online? Anybody?
Nobody has signed up.
Okay,
Okay.
I'm going to double check.
please double check, yes.
No, we do not have any.
Okay, so if there, is there anything further you want us to know, guys? Because we're gonna move into a discussion. So with that, I will close our public comment with this new business. Thank you very much, guys. We really appreciate it. Okay, moving into discussion. Let's open the floor. I see, and please, this is just my thoughts. That's all this is. I see we have two options. This is a product that is prefabbed. It's already engineered to scrape anything off like the staff recommends is going to totally bunk the warranty, which I don't think is appropriate. I don't
To
think,
get painted in the wintertime when it's too cold.
yeah. So really, I mean, I'm gonna just reiterate how disappointed I am because there's really two options. It's either stop the work or approve this. If there's something else that I'm missing, please tell me, because I think for us to have them get another product or scrape off the texture becomes an onerous financial burden. I don't know, what do you guys
All
think?
their electrical and everything on the side that they've already finished, they're gonna have to call someone to try to remove all of that as well. Redo the siding if it were a redo kind of a situation.
It is a difficult situation. I would wonder though, if 9 months ago before it was ordered, the manufacturer could have not made it, you know, squiggly or whatever, and could have done it in a smooth finish that would have
It
matched.
wasn't available instead.
But even when they ordered it in January,
So-
before they
well, wait.
manufactured it,
I just want to make sure.
Can you talk?
can you
We can
not-
talk.
Okay, so you can share.
No, I'm gonna, I feel like as much information as we can get for this, this is
So,
gonna be better
if you
for
would,
us.
let's come up with a.
Come back up,
with a
guys.
table just so everybody can-
Sorry, yeah.
So my question actually is, when you ordered it in January, would there have been a possibility of not having it textured and making it smooth?
No, so at the time, we chose colors and everything like that specifically on what availability was. We made decisions because everything else had lead times that were going way, way into the future that were unpredictable. This was product that was on the shelf already manufactured.
Okay, thank you.
Thoughts?
Chapter 21 of the code does have a hardship section underneath certificates of appropriateness. And it does list several reasons why, they actually refer to it as an exception. And one of the reasons for granting, and I think in this case, they're asking for an exception to have a siding material that has two different characteristics than what was there originally. And that section on exceptions under COAs does list hardship is one, but it also lists is there value to the community as being one of the considerations. And I think this project from the beginning is something that's been looked upon as something that would be very good for the downtown area. So I think in looking at that section of chapter 21, I think they've provided some information to suggest that they meet the idea of the exception in the code.
I'd agree with that.
Well, I know the original didn't have that textured look, but my house was built in 1884 and mine looks like that, but with 2 layers of paint.
So does it really have texture?
Yeah.
Look at it.
Maybe it's just a lot of paint chips that have been painted over, but it looks textured to
Mine
me.
has, my old one had texture too, but it was peaches.
And I guess also as an architect and working on projects during the past year, I know there have been significant supply problems there. And there was a very huge increase in the price of wood that occurred a year or so ago.
2x4s went from $2 to over $9 for a stick.
I
Yeah,
was in the middle of renovation. That really
so
hurt.
I think also in terms of the idea of a hardship, the virus has been a unique situation. We haven't had a virus like this since World War I. So it is also sort of unique circumstances where
And
Yeah, there were so many different things that have happened since the initiation of this initial conversations and the COA. And like you said, we're between a rock and a hard place, and we're not, I don't believe doing anything to prohibit them moving forward is good for anybody in the community, let alone the hotel. So my vote, when we're ready to vote, would be in favor of moving forward and doing the best that we have with what we have. Just making sure that communication stays open on a continuing basis should anything else come up.
And one other point to mention in terms of future applications is there might be a concern of, not so much the idea of precedent, but precedent. But
yes,
that it's maybe easy to get a exception or a hardship claim. And I think there are things for, not this application, but for future applications, the board and staff can look at doing in terms of helping this situation not occur again, or at least substantially reduce the chance that it would occur again.
well, you know, one of the reasons that I have some hardship over here is because I know some of the things that we have denied for a COA. And, you know, there are folks that would like to do things differently or have a hardship that they see as a financial hardship, and we've said no. So that is one of my concerns. Shannon, thoughts? You can say I have none, and that's okay too. Like, I'm not trying to put anybody on the spot. I want to give everybody a chance to speak.
Well, I like the fact that they maintain the corner pointing on there. That
Yes.
is a definite plus. I wish it wasn't quite so textured, but I mean, I parked near the Mason Lodge and they have some of that texture too. It's not painted, but it's still textured wood, so.
I love the color. I know maybe that wasn't your original color. I actually love those colors. So let me ask the commission this. Are we in a place where we feel like we can take a vote? Because we don't have to. We can table this if there are other options.
I just wanted to make like one more comment, you know, we're wanting it to look like the historic atmosphere and the character of the district. I know that the original site overlap, but so many houses that are built the exact same year or a couple years apart do have that, and they do have texture in the same exact time frame. So I don't feel like it's taking away from historic appearances. It's just not gonna look like it originally did.
It takes away from the building historic, that
Yes,
particular
yeah.
building. No, I agree with you because we have a lot of different styles in this city. But I'm looking just at that specific building.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think if you separate, if you talk about the individual building, yes, this does affect its historic integrity. It doesn't mean it's not a contributing structure anymore.
Mhm.
But then when you look at it in terms of the whole district, it's not really as a single building harming the district. It's a matter of this were to happen on a lot of buildings where the material were changed, that's a problem. And again, that's why we can look at how to see this doesn't occur in the future.
You know, though, you bring up a good point, Mike, in that, yes, this virus has been unique, but we don't know what the ripple effect, like, people didn't think 3 years ago that we would be sitting here. Yet here we sit and we still can't get things. You know, I waited 3 months for a dishwasher. So things are still, you're probably still having, you know.
It's 6 months per door.
There you go. You're waiting 6 months for a door. So I do think that this may still ripple forward. We may still see this.
Right now, I'll just mention on a job that I'm working on, I found out from the engineer, there isn't a 200 amp fuse available anywhere in the United States that you can find.
Right.
It's crazy pants. But I don't know that that will necessarily change. I mean, there's a lot of factors that affect the ability of those supplies to be readily available. People factors for one. Okay, so with the following conditions, let me just take a quick straw poll. How are we feeling? Are we feeling like with conditions, what kind of conditions?
Never really in the conditions, it can't be altered or it's gonna affect the warranty. I think ripping down what they've done is process, progress.
There's also a cost.
And yeah, the cost, you know, even if they did that and also the money that they put into materials that they've already purchased and then having to hire a mill and get new materials and then hire painters afterwards, I don't see it helping the community, town, anything. So I'm ready to vote.
I would like to make a condition and jump in after this, that if there are any further challenges, you gotta come to us. Like that day, call Jared and be like, because I don't like sitting in this and I don't like grilling you. I don't think any of us enjoy this. This is not fun, because we are all very excited about this project.
Excuse me, ma'am, can I comment on that?
Come on up.
So Jonah didn't truly understand. He thought that this product went over the top of the old stuff. It doesn't, and in no way, shape, or form. What would have happened if that happened? All of the windows would have not been, they
Lined up.
wouldn't have lined up or anything to that effect. So he's not a carpenter, so he doesn't know that. And I didn't think to ask. So he didn't intentionally do this, he just didn't know. We have, the coining is all all of the product, we just used today's best product to give longevity. Each and every one of those corners are cut from a 16-foot board down to size. They're cut to length, they're 45, they're routed on 3 ends, and they're flipped over and put a rabbet joint. Every single one of them, and there's over 400 of them. The interior, the products that we brought, these are all original. This is the original interior window trim, and we're replicating it. We have
That's the actual interior.
that is 140 years old. Yes, ma'am.
I'm amazed you're able to salvage anything.
It's got like 800.
To be honest with you.
Paint on
Oh,
it.
wow, there's a paint.
Right.
Maybe don't like gnaw on that.
But what-
Some of the door frames, there was even writing from the original building in Fort Collins, I think. it
Oh,
was.
wow.
Yeah, there's a lot of things we kept that are amazing.
But what you do is you take a cross section. This is the original exterior window trim. And we've taken the cross section, we've made certain shaper bits and router bits, and I hand make these. All of this stuff is handmade. This is the rectangle border at the top of the building. That's the original profile. These are all original profiles. We didn't compromise the integrity of this building at all. The window sills that we replaced, we took reclaimed 140-year-old lumber from the building, and we remade new sills in wherever they needed, wherever they were rotted away. So you're more than welcome to take a look at this, but I understand you're disappointed, but it's not due to intention, it's due to lack of knowledge.
Please don't think that I'm impugning any of your skill or the care that you've taken, but what I'm concerned about is that the original COA didn't cover siding. It was refurbishing and refinishing and rehabbing the siding that was on it. So this was a huge change. Like there was no siding to be put on this. It was to be
Yeah, and that's what
refurbished.
I wrote up in the original.
So I opened my mouth and I should have
No,
said
no,
that.
I actually, no. I appreciate, because I love that you guys are reclaiming the wood and using it I think that's really important.
He's routing out new, but so that it's exact same.
I think that's fantastic. It's just, this was not was in our original COA.
I'm taking all this as a learning from you going forward.
Jared will take your call anytime. I'm gonna speak to Jared right here.
Thank you.
When we do get to a motion, I'd suggest that we do include several findings. One of those findings is that the decision, if it's a decision to approve, that one of the findings be the significant deterioration of the original siding material. That's the justification for replacing it. And then also the a hardship created by supply problems resulting from the virus as another finding. And the reasons for suggesting those is when someone in the future looks at why was this decision made, the findings are what explain that. And
I think it's important to be explicit so that this doesn't become, well, why can't we do this? Go ahead, Jared.
And if I may also make a recommendation, if you do move to approve the product as proposed, that maybe we reference the product to in the motion. That also helps for specificity, since it's not extremely well outlined in the plans, just to know that that's, I mean, they're not going away from it, but it's just once again down the line that this product was approved because of these findings, I think is helpful.
And that's
for future reference.
also helpful in terms of saying that we're not trying to set a precedent here.
Yeah.
There are unique factors related to this specific project.
I'm going to suggest something. Can we take a 5-minute break so that we can write this motion in a way that makes sense? You know, because I feel like trying to do this on the fly is not, it's not, honoring this process or our applicants or.
The issue with that is to take a break. You still have to discuss it in open session.
Oh, that's fine.
So-
We can't discuss it during the break.
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, then
That's the-
let's
But
not
for
break.
example, the chair can work with the staff member to come up with a motion. That's acceptable, but 2 or 3 of us should not be
Oh,
discussing it
no,
with each
yeah,
other.
that triggers that sunshine law. Okay, because that's what more my question was, how do we do this so that we can write this motion that encompasses the unique circumstances, the financial hardship, as well as the specificity of the product?
In other places where I've worked as doing this, that was very commonly done, is you would take a 5-minute break in order to prepare a motion because of all the discussion.
Interesting. Okay. I am certainly happy to draft a motion for consideration. I'm happy to hear a motion and recommend any amendments that we feel might be most prudent. However you'd like to run.
I would like to make a motion myself that we draft an amendment, a motion right now that takes into account the 3 things. Am I right? Is it 3? The special circumstances with the supply chain that have created the process where we don't have everything, you didn't have everything you need. The deterioration of the original siting that was part of the COA, the original COA. The financial aspect of this, and then the name of the product. Okay, so there's 4 things.
And then when you make the motion, it will also be your recommendation or your suggestion of about just alerting the applicant, they have to come back to make any changes from what was on the approved
Let's have
plans.
that in there too. That way, everybody is clear moving forward. Because unfortunately, with old, you're learning this the hard way, is that with old houses, nothing is easy. We know this, we all know this.
I can get something written up for you here, like I said, in a couple minutes. It's up to you if you want to hang out or have a.
So you just need to say we're gonna take a break.
Okay, so then let's go ahead and take a break for 5 minutes while Jared does this. Please don't discuss this, and the meeting will adjourn. What time is it?
6:57.
6:57, so let's come back at 7:05. Gives Jared plenty of
And
time.
just so you know, there's water, et cetera, there, restrooms are around the corner, so. Yep, absolutely, my pleasure. The only downfall is this computer does not have Word on.
You want mine?
So otherwise I can just write it, but I'll put it in email. Got it? Or do you? I'll do it in email draft, so
I was saying, I have a word right here.
if you don't mind.
Nope, not at all.
Thank you. I do remember.
I'm willing to volunteer the time to help.
This wonder, on a totally
Fix
different related, also on
regulations
that
and
word
so
document, is my
related
application
to
for the planning commission.
COAs and this
It'll come to you
commission.
tonight.
So
So
like
if
I
you, I was
said,
like,
to
I missed the
commit
package
time to doing that, right, as a volunteer, okay?
last week.
But I think,
It'll be-
suggestion on the findings is.
But you guys had a work session this
Before
week,
the
so.
amendments go on first. It's important. Yeah, and one of the other things relative
Okay,
to what
then
occurred in this
council can,
situation.
Make a
One of the
motion.
things that I would require was, you know, the
This is that
first
crazy
sheet
group I
of
have,
construction
see
set be
the
a historic
Citizens
preservation
Advisory Team
sheet.
for the school district.
Or there be a big
Bond,
note
because we
on
do
the first sheet that says,
I do the
basically
report to the
explains
school.
that
the
you
school
can't
board.
make any changes without receiving permission from the
I will
board,
actually really
basically.
enjoy that, even though I
That's
get
one of the ways
frustrated.
of catching
Yeah, I
is
do.
because that's on the front sheet. It
For
says
warning?
that
I feel like it's really
Because
good
most
to have
contractors are
citizens
not
there
going
who are
to
New York
work.
school district employees,
there's this other
Um,
process and one of the
because
other
we have
gaps that we
different
talked about before. is
points
that
of view, different
The idea of
viewpoints.
We have
pre-construction
different,
is that the staff
pushing
person,
factors.
the architect,
Your
and
employer?
contractor
Or,
should basically
exactly.
meet at the site,
It's
walk
funny,
around the
it's like
building and
people
make
on
sure
the,
that
on
the
the committee, they're
contract
trying
is
to be
clear
feisty on.
on what it was that the HPRC approved.
Those
And those are
things are
the
supposed to take an
things
hour,
that
they
have
usually
helped
take two.
avoid these kinds of things.
Huh?
You go with that?
And those are
Yes,
things
we
that
go
can be
across it
worked
all
into
last week. Last month,
Chapter
we went to
21 or chapter.
King Murphy to see them. Are you familiar with King Murphy?
The only King Murphy I knew was when my children were little and it was in Georgetown. That's what their elementary was called. So are you talking that one or are you talking Evergreen?
No, not Georgetown. I'm talking
Okay.
the Evergreen King
Mhm.
Murphy. So the Evergreen King Murphy had these big steps that the kids were on, and it was the kindergarten, and they have revamped that and taken out all those steps so that there's extra room for the kiddos. And they made a water station and actually did like, you know, the water fill things, and they're changing it. Like, it's really, I was having a hard time visualizing it with the plans, but actually seeing it framed out and getting rid of all of the risers that they had built into the, because they actually had to excavate, because the way King Murphy is there, it's right on the hillside. So they had to go in and like dig out the dirt, but it really, it's very nice. They've done a really nice job of it. And the roof is on Georgetown, which is really good. And now we're just trying to figure out the kitchen. Like, I would be livid if the kid didn't have hot watches. You know, they don't even have a fridge. It is a sad, sad little kitchen. But relatively speaking, they're on track.
Is it the tower?
I found the word that was a problem.
Is there grout there?
There
It's
is
in the
grout,
new
but there's
business,
also that Bondo stuff.
in the one,
That's down in the
2,
basement.
3, 4, 5, 6,
It's
7
not
line,
Bondo, it's like you put it
where
on
it says
back.
concealed.
John told me about it.
Oh, the
It
double
looks like
step.
it should have
Yes,
been a
there's double
different
stick
word.
there, but there's also grout. There's the white grout downstairs, and I have another thing, I think, of white grout in my car.
They try to remember what the color of it was, so I can figure out what.
It's
the
mother, okay,
inside-
so.
yeah.
Go
it's mother
inside.
of pearl.
Oh, that's
Is
right.
that a word?
That would make
Yeah,
sense.
mother of pearl.
Yeah, those
I
are-
think that's probably what I was typing and then it corrected me or
Well, I'm glad you
reverse
didn't like it.
corrected
Yeah,
me.
coincided.
Yeah, but I don't know if you've. been
That's
to
what I
the house,
meant.
the house
It
is so
would make
clean.
sense
The house is so clean.
Makes more
It's
sense.
the basement, but there's so much dust that I was sweeping and vacuuming, and
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, let me open the door and walk out, because everything was completely brown.
Sure, I hope you had a 95 while you were
I did, but I'm so happy. that she
Okay.
was- I left that
Jared,
because it looks so good with that counter.
Okay. Yeah, I think we might actually do it on Thursday.
Please do, and
Or
there's
just
also,
like one of them.
I might do it, so there's also, I don't know if you told you, there's
Yeah.
boards,
Oh, kick legs for the,
and
the
they're numbers,
cabinets.
and they start with the bridge and go around,
Okay, why did the cabinet installers put that?
because they were refinishing the floor.
Oh, yeah,
He didn't want the plates to get
Stay on
stained,
the.
yeah, so I took them and hid them away.
Okay, so that's in the basement?
No, they're all up in the kitchen.
Okay, I'll talk through, I'm installing that for it.
I left everything, like I left everything that, like I left the registers that I ordered for it, the black mats and the kitchen floor.
Okay,
I left everything that I still plan to do.
okay. Did you ever install a bill?
I
It
did
might have
not.
been spell check.
However,
I think it was.
Made that
however,
change.
Is that my
John
permission? I don't
and
like
I
the
talked
letter.
about the skinny spot.
Yeah.
I left those because those were so pretty,
Mm.
and I don't have any place to put them anyways.
Mm.
But I figured you guys would be doing it.
Okay. Yeah, I think she's just having us do the backsplash in the kitchen and then she's gonna get tenants in and then, while we have tenants there, we're gonna finish the basement.
Bless your heart. It's so dusty.
All right, and by all means, let me know if you feel that I left something out, et cetera, that we need to amend. But I think I captured most, if not all of it. And then, Chair, if you wouldn't mind, once we are done, would you email that to me?
I will.
Thank you.
Even though it is not quite 7:05, if no one has any objections, I'm gonna bring us back into session.
Sure.
Okay, so I call the meeting back to order at 7:03. And Jared has given me a motion and I'd like to read it to everyone so that we can all hear it. I move to approve, this is not the motion itself, it's just sharing it with the class. I move to approve the amended certificate of appropriateness for alternative siting for 1601 Colorado Boulevard to include the following findings and reminders. Findings include the hardship that was experienced due to the challenges with the supply chain as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and the extensive deterioration of the original siding that was intended to be restored. The approved siding product is LP SmartSide. A reminder is also included within this COA that any future product substitutions or design alterations shall come before the HPRC for approval.
I feel that there was a third finding. Am I wrong or did I cover it?
Supply chain deterioration,
Financial hardship.
that's what it was.
I wrote final. I was trying to make shorthand notes.
Please hold.
The other thing is that last phrase should actually be a condition rather than a finding.
Oh, okay.
Rather than a reminder.
Yes, because actually, if it's in the findings, it'll be missed. If it's in the conditions, it's less likely to be missed.
Good catch. Jared, is everybody on the email that you sent out for the amended? I'm gonna send this to everybody. Does everybody have access to their internet right now?
Final hardship. Shorthand.
By all. This way everybody can see it. I only see that because I like to be able to actually read it.
Can you make sure that that email is my personal one and not my work one? Because I don't have access to it.
Let me see who everybody is. Patty Tyler at Gmail? Okay. Okay, it should be going to everybody. Did they get it?
Yes.
Mike?
I don't have it, but I'm.
Oh, well, you're on here. You were on here.
Oh, I don't have it on this computer.
Oh, okay. All right, so I'm gonna read it one more time with the new additions. I move to approve the amended certificate of appropriateness for alternative siting for 1601 Colorado Boulevard to include the following findings and condition. Findings include the hardship that was experienced due to the challenges with the supply chain as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, the extensive deterioration of the original siding that was intended to be restored, and the financial hardship that would have been imposed by requiring a similar siding to be milled to match the original siding. The approved siding product is LP Smart Side. The condition is also included within the COA that any future product substitutions or design alterations shall come before the HPRC for approval. How does that sound and look to everyone?
I think that covers everything that we were discussing.
That was a big umbrella.
Yeah.
So are we ready to vote, or is there any more discussion?
I think I would like to add in there a time frame as to when it should come for approval, like as soon as it's discovered or something like that. Just to make sure that it's something that's done immediately and not like, yeah,
Prior to any action taken or something. to that
right,
effect.
so it's not ordered before. Yeah, something like that.
Prior to any changes to the approved, changes from what's shown on the approved plans.
So where we put that in the Jared?
I think that'd be at the very end of the condition.
Yeah, prior to any actions being taken at the end or something. Don't order it before you check.
Something of that effect.
So Patty, what you put in there was within the COA that any future product substitutions or design alterations shall come before the HPRC for approval prior to any actions taken that are contrary to the approved COA plans. Yes. Okay. All right, I'm gonna send a new one out to you guys. So we all have it.
You saying?
Yes, you're actually on that whole email chain.
Should that, should be going. Good.
Yeah, normally I would not reply all.
Yeah, no, and Nick can correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel that since it's in the course of an open public meeting, that it complies with the intent.
Well, also, we all need to have a copy, like, we should all have a copy that we can look at. Okay. Does everyone feel that this meets all of our conditions, all of our findings? Okay, and with that, I'm going to close the new business and move into voting. I will take a motion on this amended COA that is before us. Oh, you done that? Here it comes.
We can ask the attorney, but I think you can just say the motion as.
As read, so we don't have to read it again?
If that's acceptable. to
Nick,
the
are we able to
attorney.
do that?
I would maybe read it one more time since you amended the motion at the end and didn't read the beginning portion.
I will take a motion.
I can read.
Okay.
I move to approve the amended certificate of appropriateness for alternative siding for 1601 Colorado Boulevard to include the following findings and conditions. Findings include the hardship that was experienced due to the challenges with the supply chain as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, the extensive deterioration of the original siding that was intended to be stored, and the financial hardship that would have been imposed by requiring a similar siding be milled to match the original siding. The approved siding product is LP Smart Side. A condition is also included with the COA that any future product substitutions or design alterations shall come before the HPRC for approval prior to any actions taken that are contrary to the approved COA plans.
Do I have a second?
I second that.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please raise your, actually, for this one, let's do a roll call.
Lisa Manifold.
If I may, I'll just ask for any more discussion.
Oh, thank you. Any further discussion? All right, now if I have a roll call, please, Ms. Wonder.
Lisa Manifold.
Yes.
Rachel Church.
Yes.
Patty Tyler,
Yes.
Shannon Glazer,
Yes.
Michael Davenport.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Congratulations. One more step in the process is done. Let us move on to any further new business. Go ahead.
So, a little while ago, we had a sign application come before, staff. So it was a wall sign. And what had occurred was that staff looked back in, our records. I guess we were made aware of a wall sign, I should say, rather than application. But staff, reviewed records to see if any other wall signs had come before, the HPRC in the past. We did not find any wall signs that came before HPRC, but we did find a number of projection signs that came from HPRC. And in reviewing the rules, there's a carve out for signs. There's a very specific criteria that staff is able to review and not take to the HPRC. What I guess I either am looking for direction on or something for you to provide me with direction in the future, if you want to take it back and consider it, is do you want to see wall signs before you? I will go over off the top of my head. I'm trying to remember all of the classifications that that the staff was able to look at and say if it fell in this category, it would come to HPRC, and they were odd means of affixing it. There was no strange means of that the sign was affixed. Odd lighting, and then I'm going to draw a blank on the third one. But long story short is, does HPRC want to see wall signs, or are they comfortable with the carve out in the guidelines that puts some of that discretion back on staff? And I can get you more information in the future if you'd like to further comment with it.
I think we should go with the code as it's written now. And so if there is a carve out, we should just be following our code. But secondly, I think we've talked about reviewing our guidelines, and that's part of the next meeting, is that I think that's part of an issue to discuss what kind of things could be left to staff. For example, what about changing a vent, a roof vent? Is that something that has to come back to the board? You know, there may be more of these simple things that could be left to staff.
Does the carve outs take the wall signs away from planning commission as well? Like it doesn't have to go through, because the signs go through planning commission and then come to us?
So the wall signs typically do not go through planning commission, as long as they meet the required sizes, etc. They can just get a permit from staff. So there is not a review body beside the administration.
Thoughts, guys?
But if the sign is like all sorts of crazy psychedelic colors, would that be, I mean, would that be something that the staff would just sort of put the kibosh on right away, or?
We would, so we would not have the authority just to cancel that because of the aesthetic, right? As long as it meets the size, etc. But it might fall into the carve out of, that's something that brings it back to HPRC. So staff does have the discretion to bring something unique or odd to HPRC.
I see, okay.
And that's because it affects the character of the district.
Precisely.
Yes.
So,
Is this something that you have had any, like, do you have something that has come up as been a challenge or?
well, so for instance, we did have the pickaxe pizza sign was installed. And when we took a look at that, we said, does that need to go through HPRC? Well, it's mounted by just, anchor bolts. It doesn't have unique lighting. It's proposed to have lighting in the future, but we don't feel that is out of character. And we also moved down the street to look at some other comparisons. And one of the comparisons was Mountain Prime sign. The Mountain Prime sign is an internally illuminated sign rather than a wood sign, and that did not put before HPRC. So that was one of the determining factors as to why we did not take that item.
It seems like staff has a reasonable sense of you know, what's appropriate and what they need to kick elsewhere.
Okay, and if you think we were adhering to it in the faith of the code, then we'll keep doing what we're doing. So I wanted to bring that up to see if that was indeed the feel of the commission.
Well, I think if the carve out hasn't created challenges, I think it's okay. And like Mike says, you know, one of our goals in the next 12 months, I think, is to look at these lead guidelines. So if it does create challenges, we can address that.
Agree.
All right. Any other new business?
I have none at this time.
And just as a quick reminder, we are meeting on
2 weeks, the 18th.
the 18th at 5:30 for the training. So if anything gets in your way, please let Jared or Wanda know. Because we definitely need the training. And that's been a long time coming.
Yeah, it should be good too. We've got some good speakers and
Excellent. Okay, if nothing further, then we're gonna go ahead and adjourn at 7:19. Thank you, guys.
thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks, Nick.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Here's another one.